In this lecture, we look indexing using the LAC method. This is selection based on label. Let's create a data frame and see how we can apply the LAC method for indexing. Okay, for this we'll use NumPy's random n method. So pd.dataFrame, then np.random.randn, and let's create a 6x4 data frame. So 6x4, and then let's pass columns argument. Columns is equal to list. So we'll create a list from the alphabets A, B, C, D. That will create columns for us, 4 columns. And then for index, let's use the dateRange function. We've seen the dateRange function before. So that's pd.dateRange, if you remember. And then we pass the date. Let's say 10/22/2016. We'll pass that as a string. (10/22/2016), and then periods. We need 6 since we're creating 6 rows. We'll pass the periods argument and then set it to be equal to 6. And let's save this in a variable called index. Okay, so we have columns is equal to list. It will create from this list A, B, C, D, and then we can set index to be equal to the index that we created. Index, or let's rename this to index date. That way it's not confusing. So index underscore date. And let's save this in a variable called DataFrame1. Now let's call our DataFrame1 object. So we have a 6x4 data frame. Now let's look at how we can use the LAC method. So if I use the LAC method on my DataFrame1 object called LAC, remember the LAC method is a label-based indexing, and if we pass index like this, for instance 2 to 4, this will throw us an error because this LAC indexing is based on labels. So if we throw this, we'll get a type error, and it says here cannot do slice indexing on our data frame. That's because the LAC method is label based. So if we want to do indexing, we have to pass this actual index here. So we'll have to say DataFrame1 that LAC, then we gotta pass the date variables. So that's, let's say 10/22/2016 colon to whatever date we want, 10/25/2016. Run it. Now we get the first 4 rows, right? 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th. Notice here that the beginning and end of the slice are included. So both the beginning and end are included while using the LAC method. And if we want to grab the last 3 dates, the last 3 rows, all we have to pass is 10/25 colon up to 2027. So as we saw from this example, the LAC method is label based, right? It's label based, and the inputs that it accepts are, it could be a label, so a single label like this, or a list of labels. It can accept a slice object with labels. That's what we saw here. So those are the inputs that it can accept. Okay, let's look at another example. Let's see how we can apply the LAC method on a series object. Let's create a series. pd.series. We'll use numpy's random.runN method, and let's create a series with 5 indexes. So for the index, we'll use the list method and pass A, B, C, D, E. So that will create a series object with 5 rows for us. And let's save this in a variable called series1. So if we call our series1 object, we have 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with indexes A through E. So if we apply the LAC method, series1 dot LAC, and let's say we want to grab everything from index B all the way down. So we can simply say B, then colon. So start with B and then start with index B and grab everything down. So notice here B is a label, right? So run it. So we got B, C, D, and E. Let's say we want to grab the value for index E. How can we do that? So we can say series1.lac. Then we pass the label E. And we get the value 0.1717. We can also change the value for any of our indexes. Let's say we want to change the last 2 values for indexes D and E to a different number. How can we do that? Okay, first we need to select our rows that we want to change. So series1.lac. Let's say we want to change the last 2 rows. So that will be D colon, that means D and everything below D, which is E basically. So we have selected D and E. Then let's say we want to change their values to, let's say, 5. Okay, now if we run it again and then call our series1 object, we see that the values for indexes D and E is now 5. Okay, let's go back to our data frame. Let's see our data frame object that we created earlier. So we have a 6x4, and let me show you some more examples of how we can select specific rows and columns. So we have our data frame 1 object that lac. Hello and welcome back. Let's continue our discussion. So let's say we wanted to select the first 2 rows and all the columns from our data frame 1 object. How can we do that? So we can say data frame 1 dot lac and pass the first 2 days, 2 dates, so 10, 22, 2016.